Over the past few years, my daily device has always been the iPhone. And the reason for that is just efficiency, optimization, and overall, I don't have to worry about glitches, bugs, any sort of problem. It's just much more secure in my opinion. Despite that, I feel like it can get boring over time because Apple don't make a lot of changes. For the past few weeks now, I have been using the Z Fold6, and I'm gonna tell you everything I think about it, like all the good things and all the bad things. And there is actually quite a few of each. But in terms of form factor and design, this is basically an S24 Ultra looking phone. Like it looks almost like you took that phone and squashed it and made it more narrow and then kind of removed some of the cameras on the back. But it has that same Samsung design language that we're used to. It's a little bit thicker because obviously it does fold, but I don't really mind thickness. Like thickness is not a problem, especially considering all the features you get from that inner display. I'm willing to have like a few extra millimeters of thickness on my phone. So obviously this isn't Samsung's first foldable phone. This is actually the 6th generation, which is kind of crazy. So they've had 6 of these, and each generation it gets a little bit more like a practical, usable phone. I feel like the first stage they brought out this Fold, the outer screen was horrific. It had like big black bars, it was a low resolution. The inner screen, it had like a big cutout in the top for the camera, and it just wasn't like a finished product in my eyes, so I always kind of stayed clear of it. But with this phone, it definitely does feel more like a normal device when you're using it on the cover screen. It is a little bit taller than I would like and a little bit too narrow, so sometimes when I'm typing with my thumbs, they're kind of big, and like it can be super hard with the keyboard. Sometimes I make a lot of mistakes just because of how narrow the screen is. But then you might say, well, just open it up. But when I have it open, I have the opposite problem. It's then too large to type on, so I also still make mistakes. The inner display is where things get interesting. So it's a 7.6-inch display, really high quality. You know, everything in terms of sharpness is great. When you're watching content, it looks incredible. The only thing is the aspect ratio. So you almost have this square aspect ratio. It's a little bit taller than wide. So when you rotate the phone, you do get a little bit more screen real estate for content consumption, basically. So my only gripe is it unfolds to this massive display, and you would think this gives you like an incredible experience when you're consuming content. The time you factor in the ratio and the black bars, the screen itself is not much bigger than a conventional plus size smartphone. So I would say the main area that the inner screen should be used for, from like, you know, what Samsung seem to be pushing, is productivity. It's for note taking, multitasking with multiple apps. You can have one app on each side of the screen, so you've effectively got like 2 smartphones in one. So I would say if you want to do one single task, the inner screen is not great for it, but if you want to multitask, that is where this thing really excels. In terms of the brightness of these screens, the inner and outer screen both have the same level of brightness at 2600 nits. So, you know, when you're outside, when you're in direct sunlight, you're using this in like a bright room, you can see the screen with no problem whatsoever, and it has really good viewing angles as well. So you're getting basically some of the best displays that Samsung has to offer, but you also still do have that crease, like I mentioned, down the middle. So, you know, if you are swiping, you do feel it, and I feel like it's getting a little bit worse, you know, over the past few weeks of using it, just because I've been folding it open and closed a lot. So far, the hinge has held up pretty well. It's very solid. It doesn't move much when you shake the phone, and there's a few features you can make use of the Fold. So when you do fold it like halfway closed, you get some controls on the bottom half of the screen for like media playback, as well as for the camera shutter and previewing photos. And you can even also turn on the outer display, so you can turn on a preview for inside the camera app. So the person you're taking the shot of can actually see how they look and how to frame themselves on the back of the phone. Now, because you have this giant 7.6-inch display with incredible brightness, it does take a hit in terms of battery life. So you have a 4400 milliamp hour cell. And so yeah, you do get a little bit less battery life than some of the other flagship phones out there, especially if you're using the inner display a lot, you are gonna notice quite a battery hit. So from my testing, I get about 4 to 5 hours if I'm constantly using that inner display. If I'm sort of using both the inner and outer screens, I found that I would get around 6 to 8 hours, but averaging around 6 most days. You do have fast charging, so you're able to get around 50% battery in 30 minutes with a 25-watt adapter. So even though it does run low pretty fast, you can top it up quick. So now let's move on and talk about the cameras. The cameras are, I would say, pretty average. They're about the same as any other sort of $800 flagship. but this phone is priced in at $1,900 US. So you're paying almost twice what you would pay for a standard flagship for this phone, and you're getting about the same in terms of camera quality. So for cameras, it's definitely not the best, but it is pretty good, I would say that. So you're missing out some of the features from the S24 Ultra, like the laser autofocus, as well as the incredible zoom. You still do get pretty decent zoom, but it's only 3 times optical, and then everything else is just enhanced beyond that. So if you do use like the 30 times zoom, it is just sort of cropping in digitally, but you know, you can still get some pretty impressive fake moon shots from this phone, like every other Samsung. And you're still getting some great color processing using Samsung's algorithms. You're getting really good dynamic range. Like the photos are solid that come out of this phone, but they're just not quite as good as what Samsung has to offer on the top end of the spectrum. So yeah, you're making some sacrifice to get the displays, and that is definitely, in terms of battery life, in terms of the cameras, they're the kind of things that you're sacrificing because other parts of the phone cost more and they're having to repay some of the development costs for that flexible inner display. But I feel like on the 6th generation now, they should have added a little bit more to just bring it up to standard and basically just make it an S24 Ultra that unfolds. In terms of front-facing cameras, you actually have 2 on this phone, which kind of makes sense because you have this outer screen and then you have the inner screen. So there might be cases where you want to have a video call on the inner display. And there's actually a camera up here underneath the display. So it's only a 4 megapixel lens, and it is pretty bad quality. Like, it's very hazy because it's looking through the display. And I would advise not really using it. Like, max resolution is full HD. But I feel like for a $2,000 device, they should have done better. Like, 4 megapixel is just not enough. And looking through the display is so hazy and grainy. Like, it is the worst front-facing camera I've seen in a long time. Worse than some $200-300 phones that I've tried in the past. And this is a $2,000 phone. So yeah, I don't know what Samsung was playing with that. Like, it's just definitely not acceptable. This right now is the 4 megapixel HD camera on the inside of the display. And yeah, it's definitely not the best. So this is how it looks. The outer screen is a little bit better, still nothing amazing, but it's a 10 megapixel camera and you're getting fairly decent results. Pretty good for social media or video calls, stuff like that, but I would never ever use the inner one. It's just that bad. I recently got my hands on the new Google Pixel Fold, and that thing is incredible. Like, I love the aspect ratio of it. It's much nicer on the outer display, but I would say Samsung's is much nicer on the inner display. Something I really like about the way Samsung make the foldables is the software. So they make the outer screen and the inner screen almost like separate devices. So you can fully customize this outer screen. You can set the keyboard you want for it because it's fairly narrow, and you can set the wallpaper, your icon grid size, like basically everything, even your lock screen wallpaper. Then on the inner screen, you can set a different keyboard, different wallpaper, have a different grid layout. You know, you can have like icons up here and widgets wherever you want. And I like having 2 separate layouts because you want to make use of the screen real estate. So having the same one is just not very efficient. So Samsung have definitely nailed it in terms of software. They're always really good at just adding a bunch of features and options you can toggle on and off, whereas Google is more limiting. So yeah, Samsung definitely are nailing the inner screen and just all the features that they have to offer on foldables. But I would say, yeah, the outer screen is definitely better on other phones. Definitely like the OnePlus Fold as well as the new Pixel Fold. They just nail the outer screen experience because the outer screen is not normal and then the inner screen is also not normal. So you can never really get like a comfortable experience. Like, most apps aren't optimized for this tall screen and most apps aren't optimized for this square, bigger display on the inside. So I feel like it would be good to have one screen at least, which is just normal, and you can guarantee apps will be optimized and will work efficiently on it, and it's going to be comfortable to use. A lot of other smartphone brands like Apple and Google have really been pushing AI, and I feel like Samsung has also been doing that ever since the S24 Ultra release. They've just been really pushing all the features, and I feel like, yes, some of them are useful, but I feel like a lot of them are just kind of gimmicky, and I would never really use them on a daily basis. But inside the settings, you can see this Galaxy AI section. And inside of here, there's a ton of advanced intelligence modes throughout the phone, including like, you know, note assist, transcription, browsing assist. It's nice to have, I'm not gonna say no, but I feel like that shouldn't be a compromise for other new features on the phone. Like, they should still focus on like making a better phone and just throw in those features anyway, because it's 2024, right? My only gripe, right, with this phone and with most Androids is whenever I go to post on Instagram or social media, I just get a ton of bugs, and then the quality just takes a massive hit. Whenever I post a reel or a story, people are always commenting like what happened, like it looks really bad quality. And like, I feel like this phone specifically is worse because Instagram and social media apps are not very optimized for this tall screen. And that's an area I feel like the iPhone always nails. So over the past few weeks of daily driving this phone, I would say it is like 95% of the way there. There's still some things I would want changed, like the crease and bumping up the camera quality. But other than that, this is an awesome phone if you're willing to pay a little bit extra to get those features first, and you don't really mind taking a hit in terms of like, you know, some of the camera features, then I would say this is an awesome phone to get. Like, it definitely is. If you want a foldable and you want something with a lot of features that runs Android that's fast and it's like a flagship quality, this is the phone for sure. I just wish it had a little bit extra, just because I'm like a techie person and I want like everything basically. I just want every feature that Samsung has to throw at the wall, and I want them to put it in this phone. And that's the only thing I would say is lacking for me personally. But yeah, this has to be like the funnest experience I've had in a long time, because I feel like phones are just very boring. They don't tend to change much, and this is very different to every other phone. So yeah, in terms of other foldables, like I mentioned, you know, the Pixel Fold is sort of my second go-to, but I still feel like this is just a better device all around. And I have actually been using the Pixel 9 Pro XL. I love this phone so much, and I'll be doing a review on this fairly soon too. So if you want to stick around for that, definitely do subscribe, hit the bell icon. But yeah, that's my overall opinion. Let me know what you think about this phone yourself. Would you pick up the Fold? Do you think it's ready yet? Or are you gonna wait it out for something in the future that's just a little bit more fine-tuned and polished? Yeah. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.